behavior changing. There are effective ways to help increase the probability of behaviors you want, as well as ways to decrease behaviors you don't want. Let's start with some basic principles. A reinforcer is a consequence that increases the frequency of a behavior. There are two kinds of reinforcers, positive and negative. Positive reinforcers increase a behavior by providing a consequence a person wants. An example of this is if you get a financial reward for finishing a project. You are likely going to increase the behavior of finishing a project. Negative reinforcers increase a behavior by removal of negative events. An example of this is most cars make a beeping noise until the driver puts on their seatbelt. Therefore, the beeping sound or negative reinforcer increases the behavior of wearing a seatbelt. The most effective way to increase behaviors is to reinforce small, incremental steps that lead toward a goal. This is called shaping. Timing matters. Reinforce behavior immediately after it occurs. When shaping new behavior, at first reinforce every instant of the new behavior. Once established, gradually start to reinforce only some of the time. The same principles that work for training pets apply. When you train a dog to sit, initially you provide a treat every time they do it. Eventually, only once in a while. At some point, the dog will sit without needing a treat. Continuous reinforcement provides a reinforcement every time the behavior occurs. Intermittent reinforcement is spaced out and only provided some of the time. For example, if your mother always answers the phone but does not today, you may drop everything and run over to her home. If she only intermittently picks up the phone, you may keep calling her for several days. Intermittent reinforcement is extremely effective and often will keep a behavior going. Example, addiction to slot machines occurs because of intermittent reinforcement. Example, staying with and feeling love for an abusive partner are often on a very thin intermittent reinforcement schedule. The abusive partner perhaps reciprocated love frequently in the beginning of the relationship, and then gradually lengthened the time between expressions of love. Example, a parent can inadvertently respond to a tantrum once in a while and gives child what they want. The child will realize that tantrums work sometimes, so they will continue to have them, and they often will get more severe until they are reinforced. They are on an intermittent reinforcement schedule. We can use behavior shaping to work toward a goal. For example, if your goal is to get up early 5 mornings a week to exercise for half an hour, you can first reinforce yourself for getting out of bed early, then reinforce yourself for exercising for 10 minutes, then 20 minutes, and so on. Often people maintain behaviors they don't want due to others inadvertently reinforcing behaviors. For example, if a young child cries until they get candy every time they go to the store, and then get the candy, then the behavior of crying works as it is reinforced. Another example, if your partner yells and then you do what they want, then the yelling works as it is reinforced. We have to be very careful to not reinforce behaviors we don't want. People are not manipulative. We simply do what works. Most of the time, we're unaware of the power of reinforcers in our lives. There are several strategies we can use to decrease or stop unwanted behaviors. These are extinction, satiation, and punishment. With extinction, you remove all reinforcements of a behavior. Be forewarned. When using extinction, you will first see an increased burst of behavior, called an extinction burst before the behavior stops. An example of this would be the parent that does not provide candy to their child that cries in the store. The child is used to getting candy when they cry, so they will cry even louder and for longer when the reinforcement is taken away. With satiation, you provide the reinforcement before the behavior would likely occur. In the same example, the parent would give the child candy before they walk into the store. Lastly, with punishment, behavior is decreased by consequences the person dislikes or will work to avoid. Note that punishment is the least effective way to create wanted behaviors, yet it is most used. We as a society tend to react to a problem behavior after the fact instead of shaping the behaviors we do want. If you do use punishment, be sure that the punishment is specific, time-limited, and is related to the problem behavior. You can also use something called overcorrection when using punishment. First, you correct the problem behavior, and then you overcorrect it. For example, you knock over a nice vase at your friend's house. Correct the behavior by replacing the vase. Overcorrect it by filling it with fresh flowers. Punishment only works when the punisher is present, and individuals will often maintain behaviors but hide them. There are many ways to increase behaviors we want more of, and decrease behaviors we would like to decrease or eliminate. We can use these principles on ourselves and can also be aware of the behaviors of others.